Shiny Pokemon are one of the rarest things you can find in any Pokemon game. In Pokemon Sun, this is no different, as the odds of encountering a shiny are about 1 in every 4,096. That being said, for whatever reason, I still attempted to combine one of the hardest challenges in Pokemon with the most time consuming in a hardcore Nuzlocke on Pokemon Sun using only shinies. Why do I keep doing this to myself? My journey through Alola starts the same way most Pokemon games do, in a cutscene where this girl's running away from a bunch of Aether Foundation members. This is actually not how most Pokemon games start out. Usually we'd be picking our starter, and in this game, we've actually got a really solid trio to choose from. In terms of the best shinies though, the obvious answer is Litten. So after putting on my stylin' hat, whatever that means, I head over to Mahalo Trail where I see that girl from the cutscene earlier. She's got a few more scenes to drag me through, and in one of them, I literally almost drowned. This girl is gonna be nothing but trouble. The last cutscene I have to go through is the longest of them all, and unfortunately, it's the one right before I get my starter. Saving right before it means I can reset at this location, but to be honest, that really doesn't do much for me. The cutscene itself is a full minute long, which means I can only encounter 60 Pokemon per hour. That means my estimated time to find a shiny is about 68 hours, but we could say 67 just cuz. Regardless, that's a really long time, but thankfully I ended up being a decent bit under odds as I found my shiny after about 32 hours. What? Was that it? I was mashing A to get through the text. Was that it? That was the shiny. I'm positive. That was the shiny. Oh my gosh. Beautiful shiny. Beautiful shiny. I'm sorry we didn't get to see it for that long the first time. Giving Litten the nickname Anger, I add him to the party, then find out his nature is Jolly, which isn't too great, but honestly the speed increase is always nice. Unless you're like the Slowking, which then it's really not. Either way, I take out Howard in our first rival battle, in which he gets absolutely destroyed. I'm not really sure what he was thinking, picking a grass type into my fire starter. Heading back to my mom's place, she asks me why I picked my starter, and there's no because it's shiny option, so I don't tell her, I just leave. It was then that Professor Kukui taught me how to catch a Pokemon, and honestly, I didn't really need this explanation, but it's important in getting some Pokeballs. In this early part of the game, my main focus is defeating the first trial. To do that, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna need another Pokemon, because Litten alone just isn't gonna cut it. Before I commit to catching anything now, I fight How again in another one-sided battle. I never really noticed this before, but during the battle, there's just this random guy to the left side of my Litten who just stares. Like, really intently. It's honestly kind of scary. Regardless, the next day I meet up with Lily, and she tells me not to tell anybody about what happened with Nebby on the bridge, because apparently that's supposed to be a huge secret. Don't worry, Lily, I won't tell anybody, except for maybe this little kid and a few more other people throughout the run. It was at this point that Professor Kukui did some strange things with his Rockruff, then I went over to the trainer school where I fought a whole bunch of people. I learned a lot though, and that's the exact same thing you can do with the sponsor of this video, Artwad. Artwad is a place for any kind of artist. Whether you're a trainer on Route 1 or part of the Elite Four, Artwad is here for you. At the end of the day, the goal is to get better, and Artwad excels at just that. With easy to follow videos, fun lessons, quick exercises, and gamified progress tracking, Artwad will help you build skills that strengthen your art quality. Need to hone your skills in a specific area? Artwad's got you covered with tons of lessons ranging from the very basics to literal dragons. With so much information in front of you, learning can be an overwhelming task, but Artwad makes it simple. They show you a full-fledged timeline that brings you through all the lessons which you can complete at your own pace. Truth be told, I feel like that pace will be pretty quickly considering the entire experience can end up feeling like a game. Anyone close to me could tell you that I'm not the greatest artist, just look at the way I drew the lines on these swords. But I can honestly say that Artwad has helped me to improve my ability and has me enjoying making art more. Regardless if it's you or an up-and-coming artist in your life, you should give Artwad a try. Currently, they're running a great deal as people who use my link can get 30% off their premium plan. Be sure you check out my link in the description as this offer won't last forever. Huge thank you to Artwad for sponsoring this video, and with that, I'll get back to Alola. In one of my final battles at the trainer school, I was a little scared I was gonna lose. That being said, in order to quell some of that fear, I decided to go out and catch another Pokemon. I don't really have access to much right now, but there's a ton of places in Route 1 that can be really useful to me. The two fields closest to Icky Town have a chance of yielding me Pichu and Grubbin. On top of that, we can get Pick-a-Peck, Yungoos, Alolan Rattata, and a bunch more. That being said, we didn't really sit around here for too long, as it only took me about 15 minutes to land this shiny Grubbin. One of the fastest shinies I've ever encountered. I seriously thought the run was gonna go great after this.
But, you know, it is a Nuzlocke.
All it takes is one battle to completely erase the progress I've made. I gave Grubbin the nickname Joy in accordance with our nickname theme, and if you end up figuring out what that is, leave it in the comments down below. She's got a pretty bad nature, but it doesn't matter too much, as with a little bit of training, I can bring her into my battle against the teacher. She gave me a huge scare as she flinched Grubbin twice, bringing me down to 2 HP, then my Litten was also brought down to 3. Thankfully, I outsped and took her out with an Ember, but still, that was terrifying. There isn't too much I can do this early in the game, so me and the gang head over to the next big city. This is where Lily asks me if I pick out my own clothing, and yeah, of course I do. Stepping away from these random side quests, I head over to fight Captain Lima, as this is one of my first really difficult battles. Litten put in a ton of work in this fight and was able to 2-shot the Smeargle, but not before getting brought down to 2 HP. So far, it's been very apparent to me that my Pokemon are not defensive at all. For now, I'm just gonna try to use them to beat the first trial, as I don't think it'll be too hard, right? We'll see, I guess. Right when I head into the trial site, I end up fighting against Team Skull, as these guys are a bunch of losers, and for whatever reason want to stop my progress. Thankfully, they are really bad at doing that, as I dominate them in a battle and continue forward into the totem. This is Gumshoos, whose name is almost as funny as it looks. Unfortunately, looks don't tell the whole story, as this thing is anything but funny, as it's a fully evolved Pokemon with stat boost because it's a totem. Leading with Grubbin, I go for a Bug Bite, which does about a 4th, as Gumshoos hits me with a bite that doesn't do too much. I then connect with another Bug Bite on the next turn, and this gets a critical hit and brings him down to about a 5th. Unfortunately, the turn before, he brought down an ally Pokemon, which effectively makes this a 2-on-1. Still, with Gumshoos so low, I decided to just go for another Bug Bite. It takes the KO, leaving only Yungoos remaining, who immediately crits my Litten on the switch in. Thankfully, I outspeed by a pretty wide margin, so with 2 Embers, I can finish off my first trial. This gets me a Z Crystal, which unfortunately, I won't be able to use throughout this entire run. Z moves are just pretty broken, and after I saw Breakneck Blitz against that poor Growlithe, I just feel like it'd be cruel for me to use them. Progressing towards the grand trial of this island, I find Lily, and apparently, Nebby ran off again. She might be the most incompetent Pokemon owner I have ever met. Regardless, it doesn't really matter, as Nebby was in Melee Meadow, and this is the location of my next shiny hunt. Tons of great Pokemon can be found here, and all of them are really good into the fighting grand trial. That being said, this was definitely a longer shiny hunt than the previous, but either way, it still only took about 9 hours to land this shiny Oricorio. She gets the nickname Anxiety and has a special attack lowering nature, which is genuinely terrible. Still, I shouldn't really need that crazy special attack to deal with these fighting types. Equipped with a Sharp Beak and Air Cutter, I was able to move through both Hala's first 2 Pokemon with ease. This led to the final Pokemon Corp Brawler, who ended up just getting OHKO'd. That's 1 grand trial down, and with 3 more to go, I get my Ride Pager for Tauros and head over to Akala Island. This is by far one of the largest islands in the game and has the most trials on it. The first of those is on Route 5, and this is exactly where we'll be heading next. After meeting Mallow and Olivia, they find out about Nebby, and apparently this secret isn't that tight-knit. It seems like literally everybody knows about it. Before I get any further, I decide to evolve my Litten into a Torracat for my upcoming fight against these people. No idea who they are, and don't think I'll ever see them again. Somebody who I will see again is my rival Hau, but this fight didn't actually end up being that bad. For starters, my Torracat does a whole bunch of damage to Pikachu, his first Pokemon. Unfortunately, I took a lot of damage too, so I was actually forced to switch out into Anxiety when Dartrix came out. This didn't really change much about my fight though, as even though I got hit by a Z move, I was still able to chop him down with a couple of Air Cutters. Next up was a fight against Gladion, who was a little bit more threatening, but not really. With Oricorio, I just spammed Workup until eventually I was at like +3. From there, I one-shot the Zubat, then went for a Baton Pass into my Torracat. Even at +3, I was only dealing half with Fire Fang, but I really didn't need any more than that, as with 2 of them, I took them down. Prior to my second trial, I ended up evolving my Grubbin into a Charjabug, and she'll actually be insanely useful for this fight. Totem Wishy-Washy can be a real monster, but with my Charjabug, I can start by going for a charge that brings my special defense up and makes it so my electric type moves deal more damage. Wishy-Washy then hit me with a Soak, which made me into a water type, and this is actually insanely good, as now it means that his water type moves won't deal as much damage to me. After a single spark, I brought Wishy-Washy down to half, then he healed with a Citrus Berry, but it doesn't matter too much, as now I can just start to spam sparks over and over. Eventually, I take him out of his schooling form, and now I can take out him and his ally, which wins me the battle. Everything was going pretty well so far, but that was before I realized my next totem is Salazzle. Unfortunately, that's the only way to progress the story, and since I don't really feel like catching another another shiny just yet, I just move into the next city. After a quick battle with Team Skull, I make my way to the Battle Royale Dome. Not sure if this is a Fortnite reference or not, but either way, I'm all about it. The Royale itself wasn't all that difficult, as all I had to do was take out one Pokemon before I myself fainted. You could probably already guess who was taken down, as how is really bad. There isn't anything left for me to do before the totem, so now I just come up with a strategy which involves anxiety getting up to level 25. To be honest with you, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. All I can do is try to get through the first stages of this battle without taking any damage. That's exactly what I do, making it through a Alolan Marowak and also this random hiker dude. Eventually I fight Salazzle herself and start by going for a workup to increase my special attack stat. On that same turn I eat a Flame Burst, which doesn't do too much, then Salazzle calls down a Salandit for help, but it really doesn't matter too much as I one-shot it on the next turn with an Air Cutter. Eating another Flame Burst leaves me with 14, but unfortunately I can't swap out now. Another Salandit just got called down and I've got to take care of him. Being at level 25 means I can barely outspeed Salazzle, which gives me this last turn to go for another Air Cutter. Salandit falls, the totem's brought down to half, and I get hit by another Flame Burst that takes out my Oricorio. I didn't really expect Salazzle to go for 3 consecutive Flame Bursts, but it really doesn't matter as I still have a really good shot at winning this battle. Switching in Torracat and connecting with a bite against Salazzle, I bring her down to about a 4th. Luckily, this also flinches her, which allows me to only get hit by Salandit on that turn. He poisoned me, giving me the opportunity to finish off Salazzle on the next turn with another bite. I was then almost KO'd by a Venoshock, but heck, that doesn't really matter. I finished off the battle with joy, so all's well that ends well. Truthfully, it's really not. I kind of went into that battle without a solid plan and got punished really heavily for that. In the future, I'm gonna have to think a lot more about my decisions because that battle could have gone even worse than it already did. I don't have to do that just yet though, as my next battle's against Totem Lurantis, who I have a really massive advantage against. On my way there, I met up with Colress from Gen 5, who's still got that stupid head thing on, even though we're in 3D now. He really needs to change that. He did give me the TM for Flame Charge though, so I guess maybe he can keep it. This TM was incredibly important to me, especially since I immediately put it on my Torracat. Utilizing its power against Totem Lurantis, I was able to absolutely stomp the fight. With only 2 Pokemon, I took her and her ally down. That wouldn't be my 4th trial, but to be honest, that's not really a good thing, as this only brings me one step closer to facing Olivia. To be completely honest with you, there is no way I beat Olivia using my current team. Her rock types are super effective against both of my current Pokemon, and even if they weren't, it still would be a terrible matchup for me. With no super effective moves, I have very few options, so I elect to catch a few more Pokemon. Originally, I wanted to use Adrenaline Orbs to help with SOS encounters, but honestly, this isn't a good idea. At the current point in the game I'm at, all it would do is bring me over the level cap, which is something I just can't do anyways. To be honest, I don't really need to, as there's 2 areas where I have a good chance of finding super effective Pokemon. The first is in the Lush Jungle, where I was just fighting Totem Lurantis. I can run around for a really long time to find this Bunsweet. In this area, there's a 40% chance I encounter her, along with a 10 that I see Fomantis. There's a 50% chance I land a grass type, and after about 15 hours, I found this Bunsweet. Given the nickname Disgust, I immediately evolve her into a Steenie, and this doesn't really help me too much. To be completely honest with you, Steenie isn't that great of a Pokemon. I've still got a lot of work to do if I want to face Olivia and come out on top, but thankfully, it's a lot less work than Lily has to do just to become a good Pokemon trainer. I mean, she just used Splash on her Cosmog. After watching this wormhole open in the sky, then fighting a few Team Skull members, I head over to the city of Delibird. And Probopass? I don't know what this place is called. This is where I got a letter telling me where Olivia was, and in fear, I did not go there. Instead, I decided to look for a shiny on Route 4, and after about 11 hours of running around, I eventually found this. Bang! There we go! Bang! There we go! Finally, bro! Oh my gosh! Planning for this fight is just ridiculous. These rock types are so strong for no reason. But it's fine. We got our shiny. We can win now. Mudbreak got the nickname Sadness because she kinda looks really sad, but she has the ability Stamina, which makes me really happy. This is one of the best abilities in the game and allows me to increase my defense stat anytime I get hit. I'm ready to fight her now, and out of my 2 new team members, I decide to lead with Mudbray. Olivia started with a Nose Pass, and on the first turn, I went for a Bulldoze that did a little over a third. I was then hit by a Rock Slide, which activated my Stamina ability, and on the following turn, I went for a High Horsepower to bring out the next Pokemon, Bulldor. Bulldor can't do that much to me, so I go for a pair of High Horsepowers that take him down and lead me on to the final Pokemon, Lycanroc. Olivia's Lycanroc has the Z move Continental Crush, but honestly, I don't think she'll even use it. With my defenses increasing after every turn, I'm eventually able to connect with a High Horsepower that brings Lycanroc down into the red. At this point, the battle's basically finished, as with 2 more bulldozes, I can finish off Olivia, get the Z crystal, and with that, I've completed my second grand trial. In my attempt to get to Ulu Ulu Island, I encountered Faba, who talked to me about the Aether Paradise. It's strange, this place kind of looks like the cutscene from the very beginning of the game. I was having a conversation with Lusamine and Hao, and Lusamine was just basically flirting with him the entire time. She said she would pick him out a smashing outfit. What does that even mean? That was when an Ultra Beast just showed up, and I kinda took care of her immediately. My mud brace 4 times super effective. What did you expect? From there, we were thoroughly scared of the Aether Paradise and ran away all the way to Ulu Ulu Island. As soon as I got there, I was forced into a rival battle with Hao, and this didn't go nearly as well as the previous few. I was immediately almost one-shotted by a Psychic. Raichu's got basically a 0 in his defense stats, so I went for a Bulldoze, and just one was able to OHKO. Still, my mud brace in the red now, going into the next Pokemon Vaporeon. Obviously, I had to switch, so I moved into Steenie, who is honestly terrible. She wasn't able to do any damage to a water type. All I could do was confuse Vaporeon and switch out into Joy. With a Charge Spark combo, I actually got lucky, paralyzing the Vaporeon, allowing me to take him out on the next turn. Still, I was left with 16 HP, so I immediately had to switch into Torracat, who can thankfully do just enough to take care of Dartrix. I didn't even want to fight Hao yet. He just forced me into a battle where I had a bunch of unevolved Pokemon. As soon as we got out of that fight, I changed that, evolving my Mudbray, Steenie, and even my Torracat. On my way to trial number 5, I meet up with the Alolan version of Professor Oak, then I go to the library with Acerola. Unfortunately, I never learned how to properly read, so this book means nothing to me. Stay in school, kids. After taking care of a few Team Skull goons, I make it to the top of Mount Hokalani. Me and the professor look across the way and see the tallest mountain in Alola and the Elite Four. Unfortunately, him and the Elite Four will end up being the bane of my existence, and you'll see why later. For now, I face off against Mullane and his Steel types, but honestly, this isn't a hard battle as I have 2 counters to Steel in Ground and Fire. All that led me on to the 5th trial site where I met up with Sophocles, and we decided to fight Totem Vikavolt. This was after a whole bunch of random questions that I failed on purpose because he said he wanted to burn a few pounds, so you know, I was helping where I could. On to the actual battle, it was actually pretty easy, as even though Totem Vikavolt had an Omni boost, I was still able to deal tons of damage with my super effective moves. Eventually, Vikavolt called down a Charjabug to help, who paralyzed me with Thunder Wave, but it doesn't matter too much as I could just send in Mudstail to finish him off with a Stomp. With only the SOS Pokemon remaining, a high horsepower and Bulldoze win me my trial. With a new Z Crystal under my belt, I meet up with Team Skull and the Professor, and I actually end up fighting Guzma here for the first time. I'm sure as we get further in the game, he'll end up being way stronger, but for now, I actually have an easy time with him. So long as I avoid his initial first impression, I can send out Tesserina to take care of him. Since Glycopod is really his only threat right now, I can easily move past him onto Route 12. This is where I got the Mudstail Ride Pager, and honestly, I don't want to use it. This thing isn't shiny. As I progress further on the route, I see Gladion, who is as edgy as always. Eventually, I'm led towards the Aether House, where I meet these preschoolers that I brutally beat up. Truly, they didn't stand a chance. This is where Acerola showed back up and told me about the ghost trial that I could face right now. Before I could do that, of course, I have to save Lily again. Apparently, Team Skull learned about her Cosmog, and of course they did. She's been telling literally everybody. I don't really want to deal with it, so I just head past that whole problem and make it to the trial site where I've got to go up against Totem Mimikyu. My Mudstail just learned the move Heavy Slam, which is super effective against this Totem. Rather than leading with her though, I send out Tesserina and start by going for a Trop Kick, which will lower Mimikyu's attack stat. From there, I swap into Mudstail as any additional damage I take will add to my defense stat. Unfortunately, I was put to sleep by Mimikyu's SOS Pokemon, but does it really matter? With my defense rapidly rising and Mimikyu unable to deal a ton of damage, I just freely went for Heavy Slams when I woke up. This left her with about a 4th remaining, and with one more Heavy Slam, the Totem was down. Now, all that's left is this dumb Haunter who's annoying and gonna get taken care of by another Heavy Slam. With that, my trials finished up, and honestly, I was thinking about going back in here and trying to look for a shiny Mimikyu, but there's only a 1% chance I even find one, and I can't do the SOS method at this point. I would just end up getting so much XP it wouldn't be worth it. On my way back to the Aether House, I encounter more Team Skull, and apparently for whatever reason they decided to steal this poor girl's young goose. This seems like just a cruel thing to do. In an attempt to get it back, I meet up with Grimsley from Unova, and I don't know why he's looking at me like this, but I really don't want to talk to him anymore. He gave me a Sharpedo Ride Pager, which I guess is useful. I mean, I blow through some rocks, spin around a little bit. I mean, it was kind of fun. Either way, this is all to make it to the Team Skull hideout in Po Town. Guzma's hiding out here, and I've got to go through a few of his little puzzles before eventually fighting him in a battle. With the way my team is currently set up, this honestly wasn't too bad. It was basically the same fight as last time as I went for Trop Kicks to take out the Glycopod. When I made it back with the young goose, apparently Lily was was just taken, just randomly. Team Skull took her to the Aether Paradise, and for whatever reason, Gladion thinks it's my fault. We battle, but with how my current team is, it wasn't too hard of a fight. Eventually, Gladion figures out we're on the same side, and when I go to leave the island, I find out I need to face off against my next grand trial. This is against Nanu and his dark types, and to be honest, I'm not really that scared. He leads with Sableye, and against her, I start by going for a Swords Dance. He's got Power Gem and connects with that 2 times, leaving me with 13 HP as I go for one more Flame Charge to finish her off. Next is Croc Rock, and this is exactly why I went for Flame Charge twice in a row, as it gives me just enough speed to go first. With my attack still at +1, I'm able to one-shot with a Flame Charge going into the final Pokemon Persian. Immediately, I decided to go for a U-turn, bringing my Mudsdale in and doing about half. I eat a Power Gem on the switch in, and on the next turn, Persian decides to go for a Z move. Black Hole Eclipse does a ton of damage, and I honestly thought I'd KO with a double kick, but unfortunately, Persian lived with a sliver. Now that we're both in the red, I kinda don't know what to do. I decided to bring my Tesserina in, hoping she wouldn't take too much damage, and thankfully she didn't. This allowed me to go for a Trop Kick, and that won me my 3rd grand trial. Now, me, Gladion, and Hau all go to the Aether Foundation, where we can hopefully save Lily. While trying to find her, Faba sends us on a wild goose chase, where we find out the origins of Cosmog and what it actually is. Eventually, we found out that he led us astray, defeat him in a battle, and then continue forward to fight Guzma. Gladion faced him first and seemingly did no damage whatsoever. He should seriously learn a thing or two from this Team Skull grunt, because he constantly takes on battles that he cannot win. For me, this fight started the same as most against Guzma, where I swap in my Tesserina and start by going for a few Trop Kicks. Eventually, Glycepod's emergency exit activates, which leads into Masquerain, and for this, I don't have much of a plan. I decided to bring on my Mudbray and go for a Heavy Slam just to see how much damage it would do, and it was actually a pretty solid amount. For whatever reason, with my Mudsdale extremely low, he decided to send Glycepod back in. Obviously, I did all I could with my Tesserina strategy, but then Guzma brought in Ariados. This marked the end of him, as I brought out my Incineroar, went for a Swords Dance, then wiped through the rest of his team. Now we fight up against Lusamine, who ended up going insane. I'm not particularly sure when this happened, but apparently she's been freezing Pokemon in blocks of ice for a while, so I think she's just been crazy forever. Oh yeah, also apparently Lily and Gladion are her kids, so this family is just all types of messed up. She ended up battling me, but thankfully this fight wasn't too difficult, as my Incineroar was able to set up Swords Dances right away. With the same Flame Charge strategy I've been using for a while, I was able to sweep her entire team, and this led to her going into Ultra Space. Like I was saying earlier, she's just crazy. But to be completely honest with you, that's not something I have to worry about, as I just leave her there and continue on my journey. Things were looking up for me and my team. With a few more Pokemon, we could truly be an elite squad, but unfortunately, things would go wrong really soon. As I headed to Pony Island, the final island of the game, I was focused on facing my grand trial. We saw Hapu again, her Mudsdale, and Lily said that this is her Z-powered form, which is probably the cringiest thing I have ever read. Begrudgingly, I continue walking with her towards the Ruins of Light, and once we make it here, we find out Hapu was just crowned the Island Kahuna. This was perfect for me, as she is exactly who I need to face next. After making a quick pit stop at Executor Island, we pick up the Sun Flute and continue on our journey. This has us fight up against the last couple of Team Skull members of the run, then I make it into Vast Pony Canyon. Using a rare candy I found earlier in the run, I evolve my Charjabug into a Vikavolt. Hapu is a ground type trainer, but thanks to the ability Levitate, I can actually utilize her in this matchup. Hapu led the battle with Dugtrio, as I brought out my Mudsdale and started by going for an Earthquake. Dugtrio's got basically 0 in its defense stats, so I one-shotted and was able to move on to the next Pokemon, Gastrodon. Quad effective Trop Kick ensured that Flagon would be out next, but then I got hit by a Dragon Breath that paralyzed me, so I had to switch into Vikavolt. Vikavolt, being an absolute unit, was able to slam 2 Energy Balls, which brought me on to the final Pokemon, Mudsdale. Funnily enough, Mudsdale can really only hit me with Double Kick, and since that does basically no damage, I just healed up with Roost, then went for a couple of Energy Balls, and that won me my final grand trial. As I was heading through Vast Pony Canyon, I actually realized I hadn't caught a shiny in a really long time. That being said, I wanted to make my next one a great one, so I ran through Vast Pony Canyon until I found a Jangmo-o. Since our level cap is currently so high, I decided to try the SOS method to shiny hunt. This involves me using an Adrenaline Orb to keep Jangmo-o calling for help. In the beginning, I really didn't think this method was that broken. Then, after only about 7 encounters, this happened. No way. There's no way. That was so quick. Are you serious? That's ridiculous. Is SOS that broken? Absolutely ridiculous, but to be honest, I really just got lucky. If your chain is as small as mine was, your odds really aren't increased that much. So that just means I got insanely lucky. That being said, I name her Nostalgia, then put her on the team, immediately evolving her into a Komodo. Lily then proceeds to do some even more cringy stuff, attempting to cross this bridge, and she just calls this her trial? I don't even know. She's so lame. I head into a real trial against Totem Komodo, who actually wasn't too hard for me. Honestly, our trials probably had a similar amount of difficulty considering my level was way higher than this totem. There's not really much I can do about that though, because it's kind of just bad game design. We love you, Game Freak. Never change. Except maybe do add some voice acting. With my final trial completed, I go to the Sun Altar, use my Sun Flute with Lily, and this ends up summoning Solgaleo. Unfortunately, Lily wants to use Solgaleo's power to go save her mom, even though she's a terrible person and should low-key never leave Ultra Space. She tried to fight me while being abducted by an Ultra Beast, and to be honest, this didn't go too well for her as my team is really powerful now. On top of that fact, she just loves to use Pain Split. I'm not really sure if this is a story thing or what's the problem with her, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work ever. Solgaleo finished her off, and then that brought us all back to Alola. It was actually really sweet. Solgaleo then wanted to join my team, and then he did. For like 5 seconds before I put him in the box forever. Sorry, buddy. You're trash. Not a shiny, don't want you on my team. On my way to the Elite Four, there was Dread looming in front of me. Maybe it was just Gladion though, as he came down the elevator and faced me for the final time. Thankfully, I could boom basically his whole team just using my Vikavolt. Last was his Lucario, and for that I sent out Mudsdale, who finished him off with an Earthquake. With all that behind us, I still couldn't shake this feeling of dread, so I decided to catch one more Pokemon for the road. This was another SOS chain that took way longer than the previous. I assassinated most of the Alolan Vulpix population up here until eventually one was shiny, so we were all good. If you're curious about how the SOS odds actually work, it's basically just the more Pokemon you take out, the higher your odds will be. Regardless, with the shiny Alolan Vulpix in front of me, I catch her, give her the nickname Envy, then immediately evolve her into an Alolan Ninetales. This teammate should be yet another useful addition for this upcoming Elite Four. Before I can actually get into any of that though, I've got one more rival battle against Hal. His team isn't nearly as threatening now as it was back in Ulu'ula Island, as now I have fully evolved Pokemon. A swift battle ensues. I of course win with no casualties, then can move on to the Elite Four. After preparing my team, getting all my movesets right, and bringing everybody up to the level cap, all I could do now was start my battles. Still, I wasn't feeling great, but that didn't stop me from walking into my first fight against Kahili. She leads a battle with Skarmory as I send out my Incineroar and start by going for a Swords Dance. To be honest, Skarmory really can't do that much damage, so I actually set up 3 of them before starting to go for Flame Charge to raise my speed stat. Doing this 3 times means I'm at +6 attack and faster than anything she can send out at me. Her Mandibuzz was able to survive 2 hits, but that's only because Mandibuzz is a literal tank. Every single one of her remaining 3 Pokemon went down to 1-shots, and with that, my first Elite Four battle was finished. The next chamber I went into was the rock one, as I wanted to face off against Olivia as soon as I could. Unfortunately, this ended up being a bad decision. I led with my Tesserina and got off a 4-time super effective Trop Kick that took the Oko. Next was Golem, so I swapped into Komodo and went for 2 Brick Breaks to take her down. This led into Carbink, who has 4-time super effective Moonblast, so I very quickly made the decision to swap into my Mudsdale. Firing off 2 quad effective Heavy Slams allowed me to move on to the 4th Pokemon, Probopass. Earthquake is an incredibly powerful move, so it only took a few of them to take down Probopass, who is extremely tanky. In that time, I took no damage. Anything I did take was basically healed off by leftovers, and right when Lycanroc came in, the Reflect ran out. I truly thought we were home free. I mean, Reflect just ran out, and Lycanroc can't one-shot me with anything. Right? Yeah, wrong. Earthquake brought Lycanroc down into the red, and he hit me with a counter. This atomized my Mudsdale and made it so I lost a Pokemon in one of the easiest fights of this Elite Four. Tesserina was able to finish him off with a Trop Kick, but the damage had already been done, and I was down 1 Pokemon going into my final 3 battles of the game. For my next fight, I decided to go up against Hala and his fighting types, as I figured my Ninetales would be a pretty good counter for anything he threw at me. Leading with Ninetales, I tried to go for a Nasty Plot, but for whatever reason, he went for a Fake Out, and this made it so I needed to switch into Vikavolt. With Hariyama's special defense lowered, I went for 2 Thunderbolts to take him down. This brought out Primeape, who I figured was probably going to go for an Outrage, and I was right about this and completely avoided the damage with Envy. From there, I went for my Nasty Plot, as I knew I only had to survive 1 Cross Chop, and thankfully my Ninetales did. Hala's team is already lacking special defense, so with me at +2 and having access to a super effective move, I was able to sweep the rest of it. 2 battles to go, and Acerola is our last Elite Four member to go through. To be be honest, this battle didn't end up being as hard as I thought it was. I did a similar thing that I did with Kahili, where I just set up with Incineroar at the beginning of the battle and went for Flame Charge to make sure I was faster than anything on Acerola's team. After a while, it was just Darkest Lariat spam until eventually I made it through Acerola's final Pokemon and all I had left was Professor Kukui. After rearranging my team a bit, I attempted the battle, and unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. He started with Lycanroc, who went for a Stealth Rock on the first turn as I went for a Trop Kick to one-shot him. Next was Braviary, who threatened me with super effective Brave Bird, so I swapped into my Ninetales, who could hopefully be able to tank it. Sadly, the Stealth Rock's damage brought me just low enough to get KO'd by the move. With that, we had both lost a Pokemon, but now I got a free switch into my Vikavolt and can go for a Thunderbolt that actually took him down. Next, he sent in Ninetales, and on the first turn, he missed a Blizzard as I connected with Thunderbolt, taking her down to about half. She then decided to go for a Safeguard for whatever reason, and this allowed me to KO with another Thunderbolt, and that brought out Snorlax. Against Snorlax, all I really did was heal with Roost as I wanted to get my HP as high as possible before switching out. I brought in Incineroar just to go for a Brick Break, doing a ton of damage, but unfortunately, this caused me to get taken down by a high horsepower. It's still alright, as with Komodo, I could go for a Brick Break. Never mind. He decided to switch into Primarina, which is a really good switch. Dealing with Primarina is extremely hard, especially since it's got a Z move that is extremely powerful. My safest option was to sacrifice Vikavolt to get a free switch into Tesserina. That's exactly what I did, and with a Trop Kick, I finished off Primarina, and this brought out the Snorlax again, who could honestly get taken out by a single high jump kick. Truth be told, that's a risk I usually take, but for whatever reason, I was a little too scared then. If Kukui gives me another chance though, best believe I'm gonna take it. I ended up just going for Trop Kick for a while as it was lowering Snorlax's attack stat and Kukui just kept healing. Eventually, I was finally able to go for the high jump kick, and this did just enough damage to take Snorlax out and bring me on to the final Pokemon, Magnezone. It looked like we had this thing in the bag, but of course, that's when things went wrong. I went for another high jump kick, and it missed. Of course, this took out my Tesserina and left me with only Komodo remaining. Apparently, Komodo is the weakest Pokemon of all time, as with a Brick Break, I didn't even deal half. I was then paralyzed by a Thunder Wave, and at this point, it's basically over. I kept trying for a lucky crit, but no dice, as I got hit by stronger and stronger flash cannons. Eventually, my Komodo went down, and that officially ended my run. Making it this far and losing is genuinely terrible. I'm sure there's probably things I could have done better. If you think of anything, leave it in the comments down below, but regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.